Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us because everything you see on the show today is in stock. Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions concerning these watches. Today, we're discussing what I would rank among the top 3 greatest Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso models of all time. This is the Reverso Art Deco. Art Deco on one side, Art Nouveau on the other. A handcrafted version of the 822, skeletonized and engraved, rose gold gilded. It is about as good as it gets. And then there's the rarity. This is the Grande case, so 26.2 by 43.1, only 9.8 millimeters thick. This case size was introduced during the 90s, back when it was considered to be the big case. The Classique was 38 lug to lug. It was quite tiny. But this watch today feels just right. One way to look at the rarity of this watch is that from 1992 to the production of this one in 2003, only 200 were made in white gold. 900, the remainder, were made in rose gold. This is really the one to own from my standpoint because of the white metal and the salmon dial, which you do not get on the rose gold model. Now, when I throw it on my wrist, 16 centimeters in circumference, you can see why I've owned 2 Reversos in this case size. It's well short of the edges, so you could wear this on a smaller wrist than mine quite easily. It is a unisex option. A man can wear it, a woman can wear it, and it looks beautiful. In white gold, it is quite substantial. You can really feel and appreciate the weight, as well as the surprisingly nuanced form of the Reverso, which gets lost online. Don't flip your lid. This is not one of the Casa Faliano handmade straps from Argentina. This is one of the Faliano designed straps from Jaeger-LeCoultre's normal OEM supplier. That's not to say it isn't beautiful. With shell cordovan horse leather, we have some softer calfskin on the bottom, textile on the top. It is a beautiful strap, and it matches well to the white gold pin buckle. Rolling around, you can see the Art Deco elements post-1925 are on the dial side, and the Art Nouveau elements are on the back. Manual wind, manufacturer caliber, 45-hour power reserve, 3 Hz beat rate. My favorite part here is if you look at the bridge below the balance, the bridge for the escapement has also been engraved. Attention to detail. And the lid of the barrel features the JL spokes. You can see them right there. Those spokes are the logo of the company that you see on the crown. How cool is that? A very neat watch. I usually end with the ultimate piece. Today I think I started. And if you want something from a brand with impeccable pedigree that is even older than the Reverso, remember the first Reverso came about in 1931, but Cartier's tank dates back to 1917, and the tank Chinoise, patterned after Chinese architecture, debuted back in 1922. Well, 100 years later, as part of the Collection Privée, the sort of revived Cartier Horlogerie collection, Cartier launched this, the Collection Privée Tank Chinoise. Yellow gold, 150 pieces for 2022. You can see it features more angles than a traditional tank Chinoise, as well as differential finish in polish and satin. It's a strong watch in every regard, and when I throw it on my wrist, you can see it's very similar in fit to the Grande Reverso, with the exception of being much thinner. I measure it at about 6.3 millimeters thick at its thickest point. The middle of the case is 5.9. So an easy watch to wear. Believe it or not, it's about 29 millimeters wide, but it's only about 39 from lug to lug. So it's easy to wear. Has a lovely sort of gold biased champagne dial. Champagne is somewhere between silver and gold. This one has a little bit more of a gold dominant undertone, and it is mechanical. It's powered by a Piaget caliber 430p. 150 pieces, manual wind, beautifully executed at Cartier's manufacture in La Chaux-de-Fonds. A really special piece from one of the great luxury brands in the world. And believe it or not, Cartier now second only to Rolex in watchmaking in Switzerland. They've come a long way since their fashion watch days. That said, there have been some Cartier watches along the way that have become cult classics. Not the Tank, not the Santos, not even the Crash, but the Roadster is the model I hear requested most often when Cartier revivals are mentioned. So the Roadster debuted in 2021, and the idea was for it to be a modern sporting Cartier, moving past the somewhat polarizing Pasha designs of the 80s and 90s. The Roadster was designed to be an unabashedly male-targeted mechanical watch collection that draws on automotive references, Frenched taillights, Dagmar bumper overriders, dashboard clocks, speedometers, and tachometers. In steel, you can see this one's 42 from side to side and about 47 from lug to lug. This is the Roadster GMT. This one has a second time zone. So you can see how we've got the 2-hour hands. One moves in 24-hour sweeps. One moves in 12-hour sweeps. It uses an ETA 2893, which means unlike most GMT watches, you've got both a rapid setting mechanism for the 24-hour hand and a conventional quick set. You don't get that on something like a Rolex GMT Master. We have a reasonable amount of luminescence on the dial, including the second time zone. The watch is 100 meters water resistant, includes Cartier's remarkable quick release strap system. This was one of the very first strap systems of its kind when it debuted back in 2001. Later on, it would be used by other Richemont brands, most notably IWC on the Aquatimers. One quirk of this one is that it's been personalized. It appears to be the 2000 to 2015 St. Louis Rams logo. There have been different variants of the Rams logo. This appears to be that one. Of course, because it is not overtly St. Louis branded, if you are an LA Rams fan, this works just as well. And because it's on the case back, if you are not a fan of American football, you'll find that it is completely unobtrusive. The watch wears large. Think of it as, I would say, a 44 millimeter, maybe a 43 millimeter round watch, and you get the right idea. My wrist is 16 centimeters, so you get a sense of scale. Cartier still does sell a lot of OEM strap options for this watch, meaning if you want to put it on something that's fully water resistant to take advantage of the 100 meter test depth, you can absolutely swim with this watch on a different strap. Here's a fascinating piece from 2004. Maserati gets around. There have been a lot of Aston Martin and Maserati co-branded watches over the years. Along with Ferrari, they leap from watchmaker to watchmaker, but I think some of the AP pieces of the early to mid-2000s were among the best. This is the Audemars Piguet Millenary dual-time Maserati 90th anniversary in platinum, a 90-piece limited edition in 2004, which was the 90th anniversary of the firm founded by the Maserati brothers. It's JLC powered, which means you really can't take issue with the movement. So you've got a power reserve, you've got a pointer date, you've got 2 time zones, all of this in a case that's about 49 lug to lug, under 11 millimeters thick, and then 47 across. This is the big Millenary that debuted in the early 2000s, so it's got a lot more wrist presence than the 1995 original. That said, remember, it's only 10.8 millimeters thick, all in platinum with a solid case back. It has an impressive weight. It is sporting, it is fun, it is a little bit eccentric, and I don't just mean that because it is oblong in shape. It seems like every era has its oval watch, and for my generation, it was the Millenary. Doing a quick loom shot, you can see it is a fairly sporting dress watch, though make no mistake, it is a dress watch. Automatic winding with the dual time feature. It has a 40-hour power reserve. You can wind it manually if you want to see the power reserve indicator traverse. You feature the Maserati Trident on both sides, as well as Maserati's signature corporate blue. You can see several different textures, tones, and colors on this dial. And then the way JLC's dual time movement works is you have the ability to set that secondary time zone independently if you wish to do so, or you can pull the crown out all the way and now everything sets in coordinated fashion. And take note, because we do have an AM PM for that secondary time zone, you know whether you're looking at 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. You can see the little red index is pointing at the black or the night side of the clock, so we are looking at 10 p.m. right there. Very simple. And a lot of fun. If you don't love the codes and you want something with more personality than the Jules Audemars, the Millenary is the way to go. That said, if you want your Audemars Piguet in the most popular package, a Royal Oak Jumbo is the way to go. This one's fascinating because it's one of the earliest 15202s I've seen. So you can see the Petite Tapisserie. It is cut with a pantograph, but here it's stern frere. So the way this works is the tapisserie is actually a very, very fine microstructure. Now you can see there are over 20,000 little dots on these hobnail bezels, and if you look carefully, you can see the circular concentric lines traced by the mimicry lathe that made this dial. Sternfrère created these dials before 2012, after which Audemars Piguet took over, but it's always been the same method of taking a large template and then transcribing every little detail of the large template onto the brass dial blank. White gold hands and indices. We'll do a quick loom shot here so you can get a sense of the watch. This is a very early 15202. A couple of ways you can tell that. First, the exceptionally flat dark blue used for the dial, which looks almost black, but you're going to have to take my word for it, it is blue. Then you turn it over, and you can realize that this isn't even the rotor on the pre-2012 15202. This is the one that came at the very beginning of the line, when there was a lot less surface texture across the rotor. Still an exquisite feat of hand finishing and skeletonization, but it's visibly different from the later rotor. E82000, now I saw an E66000 that Audemars Piguet had verified as being a 2002 piece, so I believe this was probably made sometime in 2003, and you can see it features the famed JLC 920 Abauche, which is an ultra-thin movement, doing business here as AP caliber 2121. So we've got this beryllium ring that runs all the way around, and there are 4 ruby roller bearings, one at each corner, that allow the rotor and the ring to be cinched as close to the bridges and plates as possible, but because they're supported all the way around, they can never come in contact and mar the decoration. That's how this base movement was only 2.4 millimeters thick. 40-hour power reserve. It's got a quirky vintagey beat rate of 19,800 vibrations per hour, and it's a free-sprung Gyromax style balance. The degree of decoration, particularly the bevels, is far beyond what you'll see on the current Jumbo's 7121. A really impressive movement with a watch that's well preserved. You can see, although it has been refinished, it remains sharp. The bracelet's in very good shape. You could see that the bezel bolts remain recessed below the plane of the bezel, which is always something you want to look for on a Royal Oak. And then we have a, it's a 15202 from the pre-2012 era, because among other things, you have these Arabic numerals outboard of the indices. You have a date wheel that's not the color of the dial. AP is up at 12 o'clock rather than 6 o'clock. 8.4 millimeters thick, 49 lug to lug, and 39 in diameter. Like all Royal Oaks on full bracelets, it wears a little bit larger. I'd recommend you consider this for fit purposes, about the size of a 40 or 41 millimeter round watch, but you could see super thin. And because it is a early 15202 and not a very late one, it has the monoblock case construction where you can see the case back and the mid case are all one part machined from the solid. That is a more expensive way to make a case, and it's the way Gerald Genta intended his watch to be built. It is not the way AP builds them today, but they got it right the first time, and this watch has all of the desirable older Royal Oak 15202 features. A really cool watch. Now here's something interesting on the basis of aesthetics. From a technical standpoint, there have been some changes, but last year, the big evolution in the IWC Portugieser Perpetual calendar was the dial side. So here's what changed. This is reference 503702, the Portugieser Perpetual Calendar 44. So you've got a 44.4 millimeter case in 5N red gold. IWC calls this armor gold, saying that changes to the structure of the metal, not the alloy, but its structure, are responsible for greater scratch resistance. I can't verify that, nor have they released any objective hardness. Vickers, Rockwell, Mohs scale, they're not being specific, but they say it is more scratch resistant. More important, I think, to the buyer is that it is a 5N red gold, not rose, not pink. It's that very intense red color that we associate with 5N. Taking a look at the dial, the first thing you'll notice is that it has a bubble-like glass box sapphire. I'm starting to think that this type of bubble-like domed sapphire is the new green dial. I think we were trying to guess what the next green dial would be, and I think the answer is it's not a dial at all. It's this type of bubble crystal. So it has a double camber. You can see how there's an inflection point where it flattens out up top. Then we have a dial that's composed of 15 layers alternating between obsidian black and clear lacquer, built up, hand-polished, and cured by heat. They've taken some cues from their 2018 Jubilee collection, which featured lacquered dials. 15 layers, clear and black, buffed by hand, and then cured so that they don't start to change in any way that would alter their reflectivity or texture. We have a dial that is very complex but nicely balanced, as we've got our moon phase, we've got our month, coaxial running seconds and day, coaxial power reserve and date. Then we've got the year, decade, century, and millennium. Inside the watch, we have the capacity to show 21st, 22nd, and 23rd centuries. The watchmaker can replace that disc should you require more. That said, you're going to be waiting for a while. In terms of function, it does not feel any different from the dial side, though we will find there are some changes on the reverse. Taking a quick look, we have northern and southern hemisphere moon phase, a 7-day power reserve indicator in the date. You've got the running seconds, and if you note, we do have a stop seconds function here, so you can set it to a reference time. Leaf style hands, Arabic numerals, a chemin de fer, railroad track outboard for the minutes. And worth mentioning is that the bezel has never been more minimal. So IWC made the bezel a lot smaller on this model, and you could see that you almost can't see the bezel from head on. So I guess mission accomplished. The watch is now 5 ATM rather than 3 ATM water resistant, though you don't want to take it swimming. This is now the 52616 generation. The movement is huge, as it always has been since the original 5000, 38.2 millimeters in diameter. So the movement by itself is bigger than a Datejust. We now have a 4 Hz beat rate, and the bridge structure for the balance wheel has been redesigned, although if you look very carefully, there's a seam between one side of that structure and the bridge adjacent, meaning there's no actual physical connection between the balance wheel bridge and the bridge for the balance cock. So it looks like a balance bridge, but it's actually not. It is, however, free sprung and 5-position adjusted. You can see we've got twin barrels. This actually debuted back on the Portugiesers in the 52000 series back in 2015, and this did away with the long-running problem where these 7-day movements tended to gallop and gain a lot of time when first wound and then lose a lot as they got into the tail end of the power reserve. So twin barrels fixes that. The higher beat rate, it's now 4 Hertz. Previously it was 3, and before that 2.5. And a full ceramic Peloton winding system right there. So it won't create the dirt on the movement that was along the Achilles heel, or at least an annoyance factor with the older Peloton pawl-based winding systems. One interesting change here is that we now have a flat hairspring rather than the long-running overcoil. That is one major change that I see that wasn't advertised, but in every other regard, perpetual calendar, 7 days, and it uses the Kurt Klaus mechanically programmed sequential setting system. So the way this works is you just pull the crown out, and you simply turn it. And you can see how the date, the moon, the month, the day, everything, if necessary, even the year and the decade, will move. So if you can set a Datejust, you can set this perpetual calendar. You fold 10 days behind, easy. Pop out the crown, wind the watch, set the time, turn it 10 flicks, you've caught up. It's a beautifully simple system. It is a big watch, though. At 44.4 and 52.5 lug plug, you're going to find it wears broad across the wrist. It's got a lovely Santoni leather strap and a single-fold rose gold clasp. Let's zoom out a little bit. You can see it's big on my wrist and probably a little bit too big. I think for wrists my size, you're going to want to go with the Portugieser Perpetual Calendar 42, or if you want the 7-day movement, find the old and short-lived 5022 reference, which was the 42mm 7-day Perpetual Calendar Portuguese. A really cool watch, though. If you've got the wrist for it, it looks spectacular.